Hello and welcome to another edition of the Budget in Focus. I am Leron Brummel. Thanks for joining me. My guest today, none other than the Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, Senior Counsel, Mohammed Anil Nandlall. Minister, AG, how are you? Senior Counsel, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, and it's a pleasure to be on your program and to be afforded an opportunity to speak to your audience.
We spoke a while ago, back in 2020. We had to continue a conversation.
That's correct.
But we come to have a discussion today looking at the budget and some other measures inside of it. First of all, let's go 383.1 billion set out by government. What is your general feeling on the package put out?
Well, as I've said in another interview, this budget is overwhelming. And I think that we should also try to emphasize what is a budget. Having regard to the sentiments I see expressed in certain quarters, there is a lack of understanding of what a budget is. A budget is simply the statement of expenditures and projected income of the country. It embraces or it lays out rather, the country's fiscal plan, and it is that fiscal plan that the government will roll out its developmental agenda upon. And that, in essence, is a budget. Some people think that the budget is a panacea of all of society's problems. So they look at the budget to solve all the problems in the country. No budget will be able to address all the issues in a country. So we have to, first of all, fashion an understanding of what a budget is. So we went to the elections and to the electorate, and we made promises on outlined plans on how we will take Guyana forward were we to be elected. And that plan spanned a 5-year period. We produced a manifesto listing in very abbreviated form those plans and outlining with great brevity those policies. And we said that we will implement those policies and we will execute that plan once elected. We were elected. And what you are seeing in our budgetary cycle is the delivery of those policies and that plan. Now, the budget is only one mechanism, though a very important mechanism because it contains the finances of how these plans will unfold and how these policies will be implemented. The budget, we must understand, is, first of all, I wish to discount the 2020 budget because that budget was passed and prepared and passed under very, very strained circumstances and had to account for $170-odd billion, which we did not even spend. So this year is really the first year of our 5-year plan. So, for example, we made a promise that we will distribute 50,000 house lots. People are looking in this budget for 50,000 house lots. And they will not find 50,000 house lots in the budget. What they will find is a projection that we will do 10,000. Simply because this is a 1-year installment of a 5-year plan.
Right.
So the budget must be looked at from that perspective. Secondly, This budget is presented in a COVID pandemic environment. No disease in modern times have devastated the world and economies of countries like how this COVID pandemic has done and is still doing. All of our productive sectors are affected. All of our service sectors are affected. Hundreds of people have been rendered unemployed because of this COVID. Money is not flowing in the manner in which it should because of COVID. Disposable income is not where it would normally be. Spending power is not where it is normally be, where it would normally be, all because of COVID. If you look comparatively at budgets in the Caribbean, you will see that they're in the Caribbean because of COVID and the way that COVID has devastated the tourism industry upon which so many countries in the CARICOM region depend. You will see budgets that are merely sustaining the economy. Budgets passed simply to pay salaries, simply to finance government performing its ordinary routine functions. Very little, if any, capital expenditures projected for, all because of the environment. Our budget must be viewed against such a backdrop. Over the past 5 years, we have had successive budgets that have implanted fear and apprehension in the minds of our population. Why? Because they have repeatedly, without fail, in 5 consecutive years, or how many budgets were presented, were of a particular style. They brought harsh burdens upon the population. They led to massive unemployment across our population. So every budget presented by APNU AFC was riddled with heavy taxation measures, never seen before in anywhere in the English-speaking Caribbean in such a narrow compass. Then that led, and then you had a whole set of oppressive and repressive policies. You had no encouragement for foreign investments, and none came. None came. No new investments of worth came. ExxonMobil did come, but that's because of a relationship that we had built prior to exiting office in 2015. So you had no new investments. They took a position that sugar is not making economic sense, so they shut it down, crippling a quarter of the population and devastating in an indirect way major components of our fiscal structure, our taxation system, NIS for example, and putting a whole set of people on the breadline. Then you had organizations like SOKU and SARA that were used to send shivers in the population, especially the commercial private sector, whose role is most important in an economy because they invest significantly along with government, they create jobs. When they have to contract their activities as well because of repressive and oppressive government policies, then you see the cumulative effect of a contracting economy. So, and then you had closing down of companies that simply couldn't compete, or closing down of portions of companies. So several seafood operators, for example, closed their doors. You had big companies here that were employing Guyanese, contributing significantly to the economy, migrated. They left. So you had Baishanling gone, chased out. Barama closed its operations, says it can't function in these economic circumstances. So you had less revenue also coming into the country because less goods being imported, less taxes collected, less custom duties and excise tax collected. Why? Because the disposable income, the spending power of the population was constantly being reduced by existing circumstances. So what that led to was that kind of budget. Then you have to then compare it with this budget now.
Which is where I'm coming to.
Right.
You've said all of that and captured that in a nutshell.
So that to put this budget in focus.
Into perspective.
So the finance minister of the past used to say we have no fiscal space to invest. We can't remove, we have to impose VAT on water, on electricity, on school supplies, on healthcare products, and a host of other things. We have to increase all the licensing fees across the board because we have no fiscal space. We have shown in 2020 budget beginning and then this budget, we reverse all those measures, or most of them, and we are still reversing because a lot have been left back. We were able to reverse all of those things. Remove VAT from water, remove VAT from electricity, remove VAT from a whole set of other food items, remove VAT from construction materials, remove VAT from agriculture machinery, and the list goes on. Reverse all the oppressive licensing fees which they have imposed. All of that have gone. We have a COVID economy affected terribly, yet we have presented the largest budget in the history of Guyana without a single cent of additional taxation on the backs of the people. Sugar workers are back on the jobs. Many of the businesses that were closing down are now operating. We have removed VAT from construction material. The construction industry now, if you drive around this country, you will see steel going up. You will see construction building going up. Most importantly, the confidence of the people, of the population, of the business community have returned. And that by itself gives the economy such a buoyant push that we are able, and that is, all of that must be taken into account in this budget, where we have expanded spending in almost every single sector. In some sectors we have doubled it. So take education. 2020, education allocation was 31 billion or 32 billion. It is 64 billion this time around. Health was about 32 billion. It is 60 odd billion this time around. No new taxes. Old age pension, 20,000, 25,000 increased. Cash grant vouchers.
Those have gone back up.
10,000 it was. First of all, we restored it to 10,000 last year. Then we have raised it by 5,000 to 15,000. We gave last year alone COVID grant 25,000 to workers, frontline workers. We gave 25,000 COVID grant measure across the board, every family. And then All Year's Day, we declared another 25,000 in grant to various sectors of the country, with certain sectors, for example, the judiciary, getting a commendable increase in their salaries and wages.
We're going to get to the judiciary in a quick bit. Let me jump in here to ask the question. You've spoken about what and comparing the last 5 years to these two budgets within 6 months. First the emergency and now the first full budget. And the question is, you're stimulating the economy, but the question might come up, well, all right, we're boosting confidence and we're giving confidence to the business sector, the manufacturing sector, production sector. Money is going back into the pockets of people. The largest budget, the question is going to be asked at some point in time, is government going to add taxes to some other things to get to generate not this budget, but over the next 5 years? Is that projection in the 5-year plan?
Not as far as I know. And as I said, our 5-year plan is not a secret document. Remember, during the campaign trail, David Granger spoke about a plan. I have a plan. I have a plan to transform Guyana. The election has come and gone, and nobody is yet to see that plan. You remember, he used to say he have it in his back pocket, and the boys used to point out that you don't even have pockets. So, the point I'm making is, our plan is not a secret plan. Our plan is out there. We campaigned upon it. We spoke about it for 5 years while we were in the opposition. It is in a document called our manifesto. So it's not secret. But you see, a budget must lay the foundation. And that is what this budget does. So we have, as you may have read in the newspapers, this year alone, we will see either 3 to 4 huge hotels, each one having 100 and more, 200 rooms. One I see has 1,000 rooms with an elevated car park to accommodate 1,000 vehicles, one hotel. Now, just absorb what I've just said. The magnitude of that project. Let us say that one comes to fruition and begins this year. 1,000 rooms hotel. Do you have an idea of how many people that construction will engage? Do you have an idea how much construction materials will be purchased in Guyana? How much VAT we will receive? How much taxes we will receive? How many jobs will be created? Imported. A lot of the materials will be imported. Do you know how much custom duties and excise taxes? And that's just the construction stage. And then when it opens its doors, you know how many people are going to be permanently employed for generations? Because that's not a short-term project, that kind of expenditure. Now, that's only one project. The budget speaks to several projects of that magnitude. The highway across the west coast of Demerara, from the bridge to Parika. Massive project. Do you have an idea how much lands will be opened up? Virgin lands, creating avenues for investments. The Demerara Harbor Bridge, multi-million US dollars contract. You have an idea of how much materials will be purchased, how much tax we will get, how many people will be employed? And I can go through project by project. What a government has to do is to create the environment to make it conducive for those types of projects to be attracted, first of all, to the country, and then to be executed. So we are building the budget speaks to a hospitality institute to the value of $185 million. Now $185 million building will go up. You know how many sand will be purchased? How much cement? How much ready-mix concrete? How many workers are going to be employed? And then when it opens its doors, it will graduate some 1,800 persons per year.
In the service sector we're talking now.
Right? So I'm showing you the connection between the budget and our promises and the transformational projects that we speak about and how they create jobs. I hear people saying that the budget doesn't create jobs. I mean, how can you make such a vacuous statement? They apparently want to turn to a page of the budget that says job creation. And then they want a list of jobs that are going to be created. No budget in the world is styled that way. That's not the nature and purport of a budget. And what is in the budget is one thing. What is outside of the budget is even bigger. The 4 hotels that I speak about, they are not in the budget because they're not capital expenditure from the government.
Those are public,
These are
private.
private investors that will come. And you know how many of those are coming every single day? Some of the largest contractors now in the Caribbean are here in Guyana. You see the vehicles marked.
I see Junior Sammy already.
Junior Sammy is
driving
here.
past me.
You're a man with some Trinidad groundings, right? Junior Sammy, you will tell him, is one of the largest contractors in the Caribbean. He built all the flyovers and Grand Bazaar and all those places. Why do you think those people are attracted to Guyana?
It is the next
But you
point.
have a opposition leader who says that the budget is visionless. Well, my friend, if you don't have vision, everything is visionless. You don't have vision, so how can you see vision? It will be visionless for Harman. So I don't quarrel with him when he says it's visionless. I said, yes, you're right. That's what you're capable of seeing. But we have to speak to the wider population and explain to them what this budget contains.
This is one avenue which you're talking to them by. What else is government looking to do to get this message out, to let people know, hey, how do I break this down to the regular man in the street?
Well, these programs are designed to do that. And there are other aids, and we are speaking to people every day. But most importantly, the proof of the pudding lies in the eating. And you are people driving this country. They have seen a transformation. They feel the energy. I spoke to businessmen, are a set of people who don't like to say that they're doing well. Anytime you talk to a businessman, business really bad, boy. And last December, there was such exuberance, such warm, such happiness on the streets of Georgetown, all hour, despite the COVID shutdown and the COVID curfew. And businessmen, for the first time in my life, have openly said to me, we have never done business like this, of this volume before. And they used to do it before. Maybe not in the last 5 years, but when the PPP was in government before. But they never confessed that. This time there was great joy in what they were saying. And look at that. And then we have our social programs that are designed to target the less fortunate in our society. And we have a plethora of plans in that direction. The whole Amerindian indigenous community, we have a whole series of plans and projects intended to ameliorate the poverty in those communities. And that is right across the length and breadth of our country. And we have, like, the scholarship program. We are going to give out, I think, about 5,000 scholarships this year alone. That's funded with about $5 billion in a COVID-gripped economy. We're still nursing the sugar industry. We are still nursing it with subvention, but people are back in employment. Government's job is not to make profit. That is not a government's function. Government is not in the business of profit making. Government is in the business of job creation, of creating an atmosphere so that people can enjoy social and economic progress. That is what government is about. And that is what this budget is about. Look at the sums of money that we are investing in the agri-sector. In the agri-sector alone, and I've seen someone said that it took us, for 22 years, converting Guyana into the food basket of the Caribbean has eluded us, the PUP government. And why is it that we must believe that it will can happen now. You know why? Let me answer that question now. Because for the first time, we have a real possibility of bringing down the cost of energy. The singular factor that has crippled this country and that has prevented us from exploiting our greatest potential, which lies in the agro industry, is because of the cost of power. And that is why we were investing and putting so much expectation and hope in the Amila Falls project. And when the opposition cut it down, they put Guyanese and Guyana back 10 years or 20 years back. Fortunately, the oil came. And now with the oil to shore project, gas to shore project, we have a real opportunity of bringing down the cost of fuel, the cost of electricity to acceptable standards. Our electricity tariffs are 5 times more expensive than that of Trinidad and Tobago. 4 times more expensive than in the United States of America. How can we compete? How can we manufacture anything? We can't. We can't move from primary production in the agro sector to value added and to the more advanced processing. Now we have a real opportunity. So to that commentator, I say, the difference is we have an opportunity now which never existed before, or we never came so close of achieving it, where we can drastically bring down the cost of electricity. And then you will see Guyana. Guyana's richness and potential doesn't necessarily lie in oil. Oil is exhaustive. It will go after a while. Our land will never go. So our style and philosophy in development is to use the oil money to boost the other sectors.
Non-energy sector. That was always
the non-oil sectors. And that is why in the finance minister said in the Guyana economy is projected to grow. Non-oil economy, that is. Projected to grow by 6%. Now, if we didn't have COVID and we were operating on all cylinders, that should have been doubled. And it will be doubled once we remove the COVID. We get rid of this COVID environment.
You're getting the vaccines now. That should take us in.
Right. So, and in the oil and gas sector, we are projected to move at a rate of 20%. Now, either of those statistics put us at the highest growth rate in this part of the hemisphere. No country can match those statistics. And oil is at its lowest on the world market.
Right now we're just about 60.
Right?
I think it was $60 a barrel.
Most of last year it was very, very low. As low as $20 per barrel. Right? So, and it is still relatively low. So, we have to understand all these concepts and look at the budget from this perspective. One of the criticism which they leveled was that there is nothing in there for public servants increases. Now public servants live in Guyana. Public servants would live on an orbit rotating outside of the globe. They live in Guyana. All the benefits that are in the budget, first of all, they are enjoying like every other citizen. So their water rate has been decreased by 5%, in addition to VAT being removed. Their electricity is now VAT-free too. When they go to the shop and the supermarket, all the goods that we remove VAT from, it applies to them too. So don't carve out the public servant and put them in some special category. They are Guyanese and they are benefiting from the scholarship program, from our housing program, and from every other program that we have promulgated. All the 25,000 cash grant and so on, they got all of that. But it's not that we are not increasing their salaries. Yes, there is not a specific promise in the budget, as we would normally do, to say that there will be 5% increase. So hell broke loose when they saw that. But when we used to put that 5%, they used to tell us that we are imposing it on the public servants. that we are not engaging with the unions, that we are disregarding collective bargaining. Well, as we have pointed out, there is a huge budgetary allocation of some 10 billion for adjustments of wages in the public sector and in other government sectors. Who is that? Who will that relate to? That public servants? And we would like to do it in consultation with the union, employing the mechanism of collective bargaining. Now, when we are doing that, they are criticizing us. Had we not done that and say 5%, we would have been criticized for giving 5% and ignoring the union. So, I say that to you to show you that, look, opposition believe that they must oppose. They don't see a philosophy whereby you can criticize, but you must also give credit where credit is due. Take, for example, the law reform bill that they had passed in the parliament. I stood up, and members on our side, and we said that this is a good thing. This is a good initiative. We welcome it. We support it. However, we don't believe that you have employed the right appointment mechanism. We don't believe that the minister and the president alone should appoint this commission without consultation with any other segment of the country, including the church, the religious people, the trade union movement, the judiciary, the legal profession. Nobody. We also said that we don't think that you are right when you want to only put people with legal qualifications on this commission. We believe that it should have people with legal qualifications, but it should include people who are trained in the natural sciences, in the social sciences, in economics, in commerce, people who are doing law enforcement. So you see how we disagreed and agreed at the same time?
Inclusivity.
But constructively. And I am hoping, I heard the leader of the opposition say, that they are going to the parliament. Now, that doesn't give me comfort. What are they going there for? They have been in the parliament, but they have only eaten. So I hope that they are going there to participate in the budget in a constructive way, the budget debates. And they are not going to be obstructionist and disorderly in their conduct. And when they don't get to behave disorderly in the parliament, they run down to this place they call the People's Parliament. And they perform their functions there. Absolutely ridiculous. So importantly, the Private Sector Commission has endorsed the budget. The manufacturing sector has endorsed the budget. The Georgetown Chamber of Commerce has endorsed the budget. The Quarantine and Berbice Chambers of Commerce have endorsed the budget. Ralph Ramkaran, in an entire article, endorsed the budget. The smaller parties issued a joint statement saying that they are happy with the budget. The largest labor movement in the country, FITUG, says that they are pleased with the budget. Now, those are the major components and constituent representatives in our country. And they are pleased with the budget. Because the budget is a good budget. And you really have to be unreasonable and you will become incredible if you don't see the budget, what the budget has. The leader of the opposition says it has nothing. How can a budget that has expenditures to the tune of 384 billion have nothing, man? I mean, you got to think that people are listening to you. You hold an important constitutional office, whether justifiably so or not. I read a letter in the newspapers by G.H.K. Lal, who is no lover of the PPP. And he said that the opposition and its leader are woefully incompetent. An entire article from sentence number 1 to sentence number, 500. Long letter in today's paper. That man is a supporter of APNU AFC. And he is saying that they are doing an horrible job as an opposition. And every day you open the papers, you see persons who are supportive of them, condemning their behavior and so on. But, I mean, this discussion is not really about them, it's about the budget. But I brought them in because, as usual, they are blind. They see nothing. So the budget has nothing in it.
Let me use that to segue over to legal affairs where, and your office, where we should be focusing for the next few minutes. You've put the context, you've put everything into perspective in terms of what the budget offers, a great explanation of what is there. But let's talk about your ministry within the next few minutes, your allocation, your plans for.
So, all the development projects and plans that I've spoken about and that the government is espousing and will implement and are in the budget. And as I said, there are more stuff out of the budget than in the budget because it will come through private investments. All of these things require a statutory footing and foundation, a legal framework within which to operate. It is the law that will create that foundation. So, for example, there is a repertoire of projects dealing with townhouses and condominiums and creation of industrial estates, etc. We have to draw up now new laws to deal with condominiums and townhouses in a modern architecture. We have to now deal with, for example, zoning, proper zoning. I have to modify the law now to accommodate e-transactions across the public sector because we are moving in that direction, a creation of a modern economy. I have already begun to speak about the Arbitration Act, for example. That is to create a modern judicial atmosphere for persons to ventilate their disputes if they do not wish to use the conventional, traditional institutions. So you can go to arbitration. All the modern contracts in the world, all the oil contracts, they speak about an arbitration clause that says that if the parties have a dispute, it must be resolved by way of an arbitration. And they cite United Kingdom and New York and Texas and other countries in the world where they must go to do this arbitration. I want them to do it in Guyana. So I'm creating the legislative framework for that to be done.
Which would have been one of the questions falling on the scholarships and how do we equip our people to deal with this new modern economy?
Well, all of that, we have to begin to bring the laws. So this afternoon I spoke to the minister about the food security bill and the food safety bill. If we want to do processing in the agri sector for the purpose of importation, we have to meet international standards. These international standards must be first be contained in our laws and so on. So everything there depends upon the legal ministry, legal affairs ministry will be the driving force to implement all the statutes. The president, for example, spoke about a new border patrol unit that is being drafted now. New legislation in health. Now our entire health legal architecture is about 100 years old. Our Public Health Act is not even an act, it's an ordinance, meaning that it was passed since prior to independence, is 100 years old. We have to modernize the health sector. You know, when you're preparing your country for the type of foreign investments that we are seeing likely to come to Guyana, one of the first things that people want to know about is the judiciary. Is it functioning? Is the law and legal system in the country functioning? Can we get our disputes heard effectively and properly? Does the government respect the rule of law? Would our investments be safe? Or will it be taken like how they try to take the Berbice Harbour Bridge? Will you have that kind of government? Or how they refuse to accept election defeat when the law clearly says, when the results of the elections were clear, that they lost the elections? Or how they unilaterally appointed a chairman to GCOM and violated the Constitution? How they seized the rice farmer leases, violating their constitutional rights? Are we going to have that kind of government, or are we going to have a government that binds itself to the rule of law? That is what investors look at. The Legal Affairs Ministry is charged with cultivating and creating that kind of atmosphere and environment, and to exude that kind of confidence and assurance to people that, look, we are a government and we are leading by the front. We respect the rule of law. So when one of our MPs, for example, was improperly appointed a minister without a renunciation made of a foreign citizenship, we went to court and we said, yes, we are wrong. We have violated the Constitution and we have rectified it. We didn't go there like a bull in a china shop and try to play wrong and strong. You understand? The Legal Affairs Ministry has that responsibility. We have to send a clear signal to contractors that, look, we want you. You are part of the developmental equation of our country, but you cannot misbehave. You can't take public monies and breach the contract and then don't do the work or do substandard work. We are going to deal with you. And that is what I have been doing. You can't take the government's property in an investment agreement which require you to invest, spend money, create jobs, build facilities that will benefit the public good. You refuse to do all of that, but you're squatting on the government property, using it for your commercial use, bringing in stone and quarry, whereas you agree to build a whole hospitality center, a hotel, and a nice fancy war facility. We have to take back the war from you. And that is what we have been doing. And the Legal Affairs Ministry is charged with those kinds of responsibilities. So this year we have 4.5 billion or something like that in the budget. Now the Legal Affairs Ministry, the legal sector, as you know, a large part of it is beyond government control and influence, and that is the judiciary. And that is where the bulk of the money goes, payment of judges, etc. And we have to ensure that that system works. And I've repeatedly said that the world has changed. 20 or 30 years ago, you couldn't say things about the judiciary. You couldn't try to hold the judiciary accountable, because they were, this kind of sacred cow. And I don't intend to dilute the significance and importance of that institution. It's one of the most integral and most important institution in a democracy. But like every other sector that is funded with public funds or funded by public funds, it is accountable.
Yep.
It is accountable.
How do you see that
Right?
happening?
So in the plans for the legal sector, we have new courts going up on the East Bank, at Mabaruma. We have new courts going up at Vigilance. And we have managed, and I give the judiciary all credit for this, though we have partnered with them in a significant way, we no longer have a backlog in the High Court. And that was a humongous problem. We have solved that problem. We have to be careful. We can go back into it very quickly. And there are still some glitches. So though a case is completed, it takes weeks sometimes to get an order, the judgment of the court. That part of the system must be speeded up. So someone dies, you have to go for letters of administration. It takes 3 years. That is unacceptable. And though we have solved the problem at the High Court with the backlog of cases, there is now a backlog at the Court of Appeal. Because the Court of Appeal is not hearing and disposing of cases with due alacrity. And that we have to now focus our resources there and our attention there. We have to put more judges, and we have to get competent judges.
In the next 3 minutes, we're running out of time talking exactly on the Court of Appeal. And given COVID, in your budget, in your focus areas, is there a a plan to have the courts go digital, go virtual?
Well, that process has begun. We have spent close to $1 million US in converting 30 containers into courts, retrofitting these containers with a flat screen TV, installing air conditioned units, and putting in the necessary technological apparatus to make them internet ready. And the prisoner goes into these containers where he is shackled, and the TV is there, and his lawyer patches in, and the court patches in, and he's heard right in the vicinity of the prisons. Do you know how many millions of dollars we are saving the system? Because you have to transport that prisoner, and you may not appreciate it, but you have prisoners at Lusignan, you have prisoners at Georgetown, whose cases are being tried at Camarang, at Monkey Mountain, at Madhya, at Mabaruma. A plane has to take that prisoner and bring back that prisoner and put that prisoner back to Camp Street. And of course, the plane has to go with security. You know how much it costs? Today, that prisoner right there at Camp Street can patch in with the magistrate and have their cases, or his or her case, be heard. Then look at the removal of the COVID risks. That's a very safe environment. The prisoner is not coming out, not exposing the magistrate and the court clerk and the police and whoever it is got to be around there. So, and this we have done at New Amsterdam Prison. We have done it at Georgetown, Camp Street. We have done it at Lusignan. We have done it at Timeri. And we will do it at Mazaruni next. And it may become, it started out as a COVID measure, but it may become a permanent feature of our judicial system, simply because of how effective it is and how much money we can save by a simple initiative like that. So, I mean, as you said, I don't want to start a new topic and then you cut me off. But, you know, we should have spoken for a couple hours. Let me go into more and more aspects of the budget. But, you know, you have confined me to, I don't know, 45, 50 minutes.
you clock
So-
your watch. I appreciate, but it's always a pleasure chatting with you. You're loaded with information, but I think a series has to come on board for you to talk about law and what the Attorney General's chambers and of course the Ministry of Legal Affairs is doing.
And I've not even dealt with our international policy in relation to law and Venezuela and the court, the ICJ and other things. But we'll have to save those discourses for another time.
For another discussion.
Thank you very much for inviting me here. I feel I'm the host and you're the guest.
Well,
So-
no, you're versed in this as well.
Thank
You're
you
very
very much.
versed.
Thank
You're
you
very
very much.
versed in this. My job becomes easier when I have somebody like you that I'm dealing with.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, Senior Counsel Anil Nandlall. Thanks very much for tuning in to this edition of the Budget in Focus.